With us now here in studios, Congressman Suhas Subramanyam. He is a Democrat from Northern Virginia. Congressman, you've been supportive as I think most Americans are, of the effort of an oppressed Iranian people. We have a tweet. As they would say, there's a tweet for that. For years, the people of Iran have been faced with human rights abuses and economic turmoil, leading to protests, demanding change as the current protests in Iran continue. I stand with the people of Iran and their aspirations for a more free, secular future. What does that mean in terms of U.S. policy? Would you back the president if he lit up the mullahs?
I want to make sure, first off, we're not seen as the reason for regime change again. We've done regime change very poorly in our history as a country. With that said, I do think we should be standing with the Iranian people because they've been oppressed for so many years. Their government has been meddling and really destabilizing the entire region for decades now. And so I think it would be a very good thing if there was regime change in Iran. But I want the Iranian people to feel ownership over that and be able to decide how that ends up going. But certainly we want to support them.
Okay, so you're open. If there's a plan in place or there's something that seems reasonable, you might back the administration?
Well, certainly what we'd want to do is whatever regime comes out of this, that's up to the Iranian people, that we would hopefully have a good relationship with that regime and make sure that Iran's not funding Hezbollah, Hamas, and other terrorist groups around the region. So that would be a good development for us.
Your senator, Tim Kaine, had a success. He got a war powers resolution to a final vote, right, in the Senate. And this is on Venezuela principally, but got enough Republicans to come in to force a vote. The president says that the only restraint on his use of military power in the world is his own morality and his own mind. That's what he told the New York Times. Senator Kaine's not going to get 60 votes for this in the Senate, right? There are not going to be enough Republicans. I think he needs 6 more Republicans or something to come across and back that. President kind of has a point about Congress, right? Congress makes a lot of noise about presidential authority and war powers and all this stuff. But what, reasonably speaking, is the check on the president's authority to do stuff like invade Greenland, let's say?
Well, Congress ought to be the check. The problem is Republicans continue to follow President Trump wherever he goes. Now, we're starting to see some Republicans break off a little bit more, which I think is encouraging. But in the end, if enough Republicans and Democrats come together, one way we can stop this is by, we pass budgets, right? And we can say, the president wants to increase the military budget now by 50%. I wonder why, right? And so what we can do in that instance is try to put a check on that, put language in our budgets saying that you cannot spend this on regime change. We can continue to push war power resolutions as well. We were unsuccessful a couple weeks ago, but we're going to try again. And we want to make sure that Congress is a check on the president because that's why the Constitution is set up. And so it's unacceptable right now the way Republicans are still going along with the president on this.
A lot of Americans, I think, in the past week have felt seasick, brokenhearted watching what has played out in Minneapolis. And they're presented with 2 frequently different points of view. You hear from the administration, you hear from supporters, basically, the woman deserved to die. She got what she deserved because she was messing around and she found out. And then I get to hear from other people that this was an officer who this ICE agent killed her in cold blood, that it was a premeditated murder. There's not a lot of nuance going on out there, and what you believe affects what you see. What do you see when you look at that video? What do you think happened?
Well, Renee Good did not deserve to die. Let's start there. And she's a mother. She's 37 years old. She had a life. And the problem that I'm seeing now is this has instilled fear among everyone in communities like mine in Virginia. We're having a vigil for her today right now. And a lot of people feel a lot of sadness and they feel a lot of empathy for her. And this was not an isolated incident by ICE. The reality is there's been more than a dozen other types of shootings as well. More people have died in ICE custody in the past year than in their history. And so this has been a huge issue right now, and it's instilling fear among the American people, and so that's what we need to address.
I noted a juxtaposition between Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, and Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, in how they're talking about this. And I listened to Tim Walz talk about calm down. We need calm in this space. And then I hear a lot of other Democrats who are like, go, like now is the time. How should your party, how should members of your party, or maybe just how do you, because you don't have to tell them how to live, how do you think about the balance between expressing your outrage and sort of giving the administration what it may want, which is unrest, violence in the streets, an excuse to move troops in and all that stuff?
You know, when I see that video of her getting shot, I think to myself, this doesn't have to be a partisan issue. I'm sure there are Republicans who can agree with us as Democrats that this was wrong and that a real investigation needs to happen, and we don't need a cover-up or to just call her a domestic terrorist. You know, again, we're looking more into the context, but the reality is I've seen enough context now to know that she didn't deserve to die at this point, right? And so the real question now is, can we find enough Republicans to work with us as Democrats to put a check on the military authority of ICE at this point, because we passed a budget that turned them into a military. That's what led to this and other actions. And so I'd like to see some more bipartisan action to try to make sure we have some checks on ICE and checks on the way they're approaching communities today.
My buddy Jonah Goldberg likes to say his preferred immigration policy for the United States is to have one. And we have had a chaotic and disordered immigration policy in the United States for decades, where Republicans winked at illegal immigration when it helped businesses, and Democrats winked at illegal immigration when it was among core constituencies for their party, and it got us to where we are now. For Democrats, the fact that voters still prefer Republicans to Democrats on immigration, despite all of the things that you point out, how do Democrats get control of the narrative? Not that a majority of Americans don't agree with them about tactics being used to immigration law, but they still are picking Republicans on the question of immigration. How do Democrats address that?
I mean, we need to pass comprehensive immigration reform. We need a predictable immigration system so that every person who comes in and out of this country knows exactly what the rules are, because right now they are not applied evenly. There is no standard. It's arbitrary. People have wait times, and they don't know how to get in. My office deals with more immigration issues than any other issue that we have because it's so unpredictable. And so what we need is predictable immigration policy that everyone can understand and get around.
Okay. All right. I appreciate you being here. We thank you. Okay, America, if you were getting ready already for Valentine's Day in Casanova, Virginia, you would know him already. But if you don't, here he is, Congressman Suhas Subramanyam. We thank you.